right, let's talk about something we've all felt. You know the feeling, right? You're in class, you're doing the work, and everything seems to click. But then, fast forward a few weeks and poof, it's just gone. Today, we're going to dig into why that happens.
I mean, it's a real mystery, isn't it? You're sitting there, the teacher is explaining something, and suddenly, bam, it clicks. You totally get it. The logic makes perfect sense. But then, a week or a month goes by and it's like a fuzzy dream. So what's going on? Why does that solid understanding just evaporate?
Well, to solve this, we've got to pull back the curtain on this unspoken belief, this deep assumption that pretty much all of modern education is built on. It's an idea that feels so natural, so intuitive, that we almost never even think to question it. Let's call it the myth of smooth learning.
So this is the mental model we all have, right? It's basically a straight line. Step 1, a good teacher presents information clearly. Step 2, the student gets it. And then from there, memory and actual skill just kind of happen. We think a good lesson is one that feels easy, one that flows. It just seems to make sense, doesn't it?
And because that model seems so logical, so right, when it breaks down, and it always does, we know exactly who to point the finger at: the student. Oh, they just weren't motivated. They didn't pay attention. The problem is always pinned on the person, never, ever on the system itself.
Okay, but if this whole belief is so wrong, why is everyone, teachers, students, parents, all of us, so attached to it? Well, it turns out this idea is just really, really appealing, and for a few very specific reasons.
Yeah, and these reasons run deep. For one, it feels right because it's just like following simple instructions. Do this, then do that. Plus, for a giant institution like a school to even function, you kind of need this simple model. It also protects everyone's feelings, right? It gives a simple personal reason for failure. And get this, it even feels nice. It feels compassionate, like we're doing the right thing by taking away the struggle.
But hiding inside this belief is a fatal flaw, a really subtle mistake that makes the whole thing fall apart. We just assume that our minds learn in the same direction that a teacher teaches. Information flows in and presto, learning happens. The problem is, that's not how our brains work, not even close.
Okay, so let's get right into it. Let's look at exactly where this whole system crashes head-on into the reality of how our brains are actually wired. This is where that myth just completely shatters.
So here's the absolute heart of the problem. School is basically built around exposure. The system's main question is, did we cover the material? It works on the assumption that if you present information to someone, they can learn it. But think about it. Just seeing something or hearing it once doesn't automatically tell your brain, hey, this is important. You should save this.
And this is the central conflict right here. School rewards the very things the brain basically ignores. Things like smoothness, speed, just being able to recognize the right answer on a test. But our brains, they're tuned to a completely different station. The things that get its attention are effort, struggle, and the hard work of actually rebuilding an idea from scratch.
And this is why that whole forgetting thing happens. That feeling of understanding you had in the classroom, it was real, but it was being held up by scaffolding. The teacher's explanation, the way the textbook laid it out, all the little clues around you. The second you take that scaffolding away, the whole thing just collapses, because your brain was never actually forced to build the structure for itself.
Okay, so if that's the wrong way to think about it, what's the right way? How are our brains really wired to build knowledge that actually sticks around? Well, the answer, believe it or not, is to embrace the one thing school spends all its time trying to get rid of: struggle. See, your memory isn't like a video camera just recording everything. It's more like a super smart prediction engine, and it's constantly trying to guess what information is actually going to be useful later. And the number one biggest flashing red light signal that tells it, hey, keep this, is what scientists call effortful reconstruction. It just means that when your brain has to really work hard to drag a memory out, it takes that as a sign that the memory must be important, and it makes that connection stronger for next time.
And this flips everything on its head. We think we need to start with clarity in order to learn. But the truth is, real, deep clarity is the results of learning. It's what you get at the end, after you've wrestled with the confusion. It's the finish line, not the starting blocks.
So you see the problem. School hands you this perfectly polished, finished idea and says, here, store this. But your brain is just sitting there, waiting for a completely different signal. It's waiting for a reason to have to rebuild that idea on its own.
And if it never gets that signal of effort, that information just gets treated like background noise, and eventually it's deleted.
And the damage here isn't just about grades, you know? It's psychological. This whole system teaches us that if you're struggling, it must mean you're not smart enough. It makes us doubt our own abilities. And maybe worst of all, it trains us to run away from the very feelings, that sense of effort, of confusion, of not being sure, that are actually the real, genuine signs that you're learning something important.
So, how do we wrap our heads around all this? Well, this entire mess can be explained by one single, really powerful idea, an idea that connects all the dots. Let's call it the Great Inversion.
And here it is, plain and simple. School is a system that's optimized for one thing: the delivery of information. It's all about pushing knowledge out. Our brain, on the other hand, is a system optimized for the exact opposite: the reconstruction of information. It's all about pulling knowledge back in.
I mean, look at how these two logics are just polar opposites. On the one hand, you have school's logic, the delivery model. It starts with clarity. Its goal is to minimize struggle, and its big assumption is that learning happens the moment the information arrives. Then you have the brain's logic, the reconstruction model. It starts with uncertainty. It requires struggle, and it knows deep down that real learning only happens when you have to rebuild the idea for yourself.
So when you look at it this way, the conclusion isn't that teachers are bad or schools are failing. Not at all. It's just that the entire system, as efficient as it might be, is basically running in the exact opposite direction of how we're biologically designed to learn. It's not broken, it's just backward.
And that leaves us with a pretty big, and maybe uncomfortable, final question. In our very well-intentioned mission to make learning smooth and clear and painless, have we accidentally designed the most important part right out of the system? If real lasting learning actually requires struggle, are we making school too easy?